All right, I don't know what time it is on your clock, but I know what I'm getting ready for. It is time for the Professional CISO Podcast with David Malicoat.
Welcome to the Professional CISO Podcast. I'm your host, David Malicoat. This show is the exploration of the topics necessary to professionalize the role of the CISO. All right, so today, this is awesome, number one, because happenstance, I guess, would be the theme of the show, maybe a little bit, besides all the knowledge and wisdom that we're going to get. So we have a security technology leader, security/technology/risk leader out of the insurance technology space. His roots come from military IT as well as technology and cyber risk management. Some notables, which no one should be surprised at this point that I'm going to have another jarhead on the show, but he's a Marine Corps veteran. He was in Command and Control Systems Officer. He was a Command and Control Systems Officer in essentially IT, right, for the Marine Corps. He grew up in Warwick, Rhode Island, where the rivers burn and people hoard cats. I think we'll talk about that later. And seriously, he is a serial hobbyist where he enjoys painting, woodworking, and creating music. But before we get into our guest today, I want a huge reminder, and we got some huge news. So just found out yesterday that the Professional CISO Podcast is the official podcast show of Digital Fight Club, right? So working with the folks over there, and I've talked about Digital Fight Club before. I've been associated with it for a few years now. We helped put the ones on last year that were here in Dallas. This one's gone national now. It's being recorded for television, national television at that. June 27th at the Granada Theater in Dallas. If you are a CISO at that level, I would encourage you to reach out to myself or Mike Pratt over at Digital Fight Club, digitalfightclub.co. And we're recording episode 1 of season 1 there, and it's going to go out and have a very broad exposure. But the cool part is I get to sit down at the after party with everybody there and have the lights, camera, all the very similar setup here, and be able to pop people through the chair and record and hear the thoughts on the 3 fights that are taking place, which I believe some are maybe artificial intelligence, critical infrastructure, as well as Hollywood and cybersecurity. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk more about it. We'll do that run up to June 27th, but very excited about that. It's going to be a great time, and so we appreciate Digital Fight Club and Mike Pratt for making that happen. All right, so also another shout out because this podcast with this guest would not have been possible without Interpret Security and their CEO, Nick Lanta. We were at RSAC in San Francisco, and I had pinged my local rep, my buddy, James Sinclair III, and said, hey, where are your guys out here at RSAC? And he was like, oh, they're over here at the whatever club that was. So I wander over there and get in there, and here's our current guest today, hanging out with Nick, checking out what's going on over there. And then there's, I think you were calling an Uber, if I recall, and had to get out the door. But we found out we were both in the Marine Corps. Hey, we know some of the same people. And next thing you know, he's coming here. Our guest is coming here for a customer conference. So we were able to string this together today. So shout out to Nick Lanta. Very happy that you put us together on that happenstance and to be able to make this possible today. So now let's talk about being a professional CISO. Today's episode, we have Benjamin Dulieu. Currently, he's the CISO at Duck Creek Technologies out of Boston, Mass. Yeah. He's held positions at Brown Brothers Harriman and U.S. Marine Corps. Obviously, we talked about that before. Please welcome Benjamin Dulieu.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's West Warwick I'm from.
West
because
Warwick.
We're going to have people with pitchforks chasing me out of Warwick now.
Oh,
saying the rivers
yeah.
are
See,
burning
well, that's
there.
the guy that's not from the Northeast. Yeah, that's my fault.
So all you from Warwick, rest assured it's okay.
But can you talk about the burning rivers and the
No,
hoarding of cats?
we're not allowed to
Not
talk
allowed to talk
about
about that.
that.
It's
Yeah,
kind of like
once
it's
you
kind of like
leave.
Fight Club.
Yeah.
Right. Not Digital Fight Club. Talk about Digital Fight Club. All right. So Ben, great having you here. Love that we had this opportunity to do this. High level of coordination, obviously. Ran down to the Omni and picked you up this morning.
Yeah.
Had a great conversation on the way over. Talk to me about kind of your origin story. Like, when did you really first encounter tech in your life? You know, when did those kind of brain cells wake up? And then talk me through that moment up to today at Duck Creek Technologies.
And I think as I answered this, what I love is how you said, right, this is all happenstance. And we talked, the very first day I met you, the first thing I said was, I had an unconventional path. And you said, yeah, so did I. I said, I was an officer in the Marines. You're like, I was in the Marines. And there we go, right?
And it was on.
And so I look at this background from the moment, right? I can absolutely not look back and say that my end state, my goal was to become a chief information security officer. There's no way. That wasn't even a thought until much later on in my life. But I would say my interest in technology, as I'm sure many of your listeners and your viewers could say, started when I was sitting on a dial-up modem playing Warcraft with my buddies, as my sister would pick up the phone and disconnect the internet, and we would all get pissed off. And I actually have. I went to school in Boston, my undergrad, and I roomed with a bunch of guys that were joining the Marine Corps. And I said, wow, this sounds really cool, because I was doing summer jobs where I was really just making that minimum wage. They were doing summer jobs, and they were coming back different people. And I said, I want to do that.
Right.
And when I joined the Marine Corps, like everybody that joins says, I want to be an infantry guy.
Of course.
And I'm going to be in the front lines in the infantry. And then you go to the field for 2 weeks and you say, oh man, I don't know if I want to do that. But just like the Marine Corps does, it got one over with me. And I became a command and control systems officer. Like you said, is the IT of the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. But I was a command and control systems officer for an infantry unit. And I did that for my first tour in Afghanistan.
So not a whole lot of difference, right? So you're still in the mud.
You're still in the mud. They got me. They got me. The cool thing was we were running an IT infrastructure out of the back of up-armored vehicles. I had a team of Marines that within 45 seconds we could pull servers out, have a terrestrial point-to-point system online, and we could have data connectivity back to the rear. It was really cool. It was badass. And thinking back and reflecting on that, that's what got me interested in these sort of complex problems, because and like anything, I'm a firm believer in, there's efficient ways of solving problems that are pretty similar in all different aspects of your life. And the communications challenges and the things we had to do and set up are no different than in the civilian world, which is my term for the corporate environment.
Right. In
the civilian world, we have those same complex problems, and you just have to rally your people toward them. But anyway, did that, great time, got out. I thought for sure I was going to go into finance. I got a master's degree in finance, used a GI Bill, and I moved back up to Boston. My wife's from that area. And as I was interviewing, and I'll never forget this, it was a really big moment in my life. I was interviewing to be a relationship manager at all these different banks. And this one bank in particular, Brown Brothers Harriman, it's the largest bank you've probably never heard of.
Right.
They're a banker's bank. And I sat down with this partner who was an IT, self-made, very, very successful man. His name is Rick Burke. Very influential, and he was a hard guy, tough guy.
Right.
And he looks at me and goes, why do you want to be a relationship manager? You have this leadership experience and a background in IT. Any interest in helping stand up and formalize a cybersecurity program? And truth be told, to this day, I'll never forget, I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to be the cyber guy. And this is before Bank of Bangladesh attack. This is before SWIFT. This is before all that. And so cyber was still sort of, a nascent thing, right? And but I did it. And I still this day look back and I just think I was enamored by the complexity and the challenges and something new. And voila, I became the global head of cyber and technology risk for Brown Brothers. But again, it was during a period where there was no regulation on this, right? Remember, there's the New York Department of Financial Services 500, not even a thing. GDPR, not even a thing. And so I fell into this career path at a time where all this stuff started happening, and I saw that. Right. And I saw that nobody could take these complex technological ideas and break it down in a way and be convincing, because I was a recruiter. I don't like to tell that story, but I was a recruiter, and one of the best things I ever was taught was it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yep.
And so I had the ability to take these technological cybersecurity concepts, and I traveled the world with Brown Brothers, talking to our customers, and the next thing you know, cyber was my thing. And
Love it.
And and I ended up with Duck Creek because I loved Brown Brothers. I have nothing negative to say. It was a great career, great company, historic, very well polished. But I wanted to go and I wanted to have the opportunity to greenfield a whole cyber program. And to greenfield a cyber program at a $300 million a year company is really satisfying because
Absolutely.
it's not a startup, right?
No, right.
And so here we are.
Love
And,
it.
It's been great.
Love it. So, going to dive in, kind of give you the softball first, which is kind of the whole point of the show. Do you feel like our role needs to be professionalized as CISOs? If so, what does that mean to you? Because I think there's a whole lot of different ways people can look at it. And if not, why not? We're here for the debate if that's what we need to do, for sure.
Yeah. I think that even in my tenure in the cybersecurity or the IT world and the civilian side, I've seen a major shift. And look, even as a command and control systems officer, I have to tie it back. You're sort of the bastard child of an infantry unit.
Right.
You're kind of like the pogue for person other than grunt,
Right.
is what the infantry guys would say. And I embraced that because although I was a pogue and I am a pogue, I have the mentality of a Marine.
Right.
And so when it comes to the civilian world, and now you're a CISO, most CISOs don't have a seat at the table still.
Right.
Most CISOs are reporting to someone that's not the CEO, and yet you have your chief HR officer or your marketing officer or your ops officer reporting into the CEO. So a lot of CISOs feel probably, I'll go on a limb here and say they probably feel like, I don't have my seat at the big table yet. I'm a pogue, and
You're not in the club.
You're not in the club. You're not in the club, and we'll double click on that because in order to professionalize the role, you need to prove that you are part of the business.
Right.
You're not just the IT guys. You're not. You're not even just part of the business. You're enabling the business. Every company out there today is a technology company.
Do you find that we may be in a place, because again, back to the idea of double clicking or pulling on that string, we don't want to be part of IT, do we? Like, do we want to separate ourselves? I mean, even though we're part of technology in a way, like we're almost in kind of this no man's land where not part of IT, but we're not yet a part of the business. We haven't carved out our own area. What do you think about that?
It's a great point. We can't forget who we are.
Right.
And I think at the core of it, we are IT. But again, IT is the business enabler. And everything I do in my current role, like I'm supporting a SaaS company that's supporting pretty much every insurer around the world. And I have to make sure all of my objectives and strategy as a CISO is enabling that business. And I'm reducing the risk to a degree that is appropriate for the business, not to the degree that Ben Dulieu, the CISO, says is important.
Right.
But what's aligned to my colleagues, the other executives at the company. You start doing that. You start as a CISO thinking in the terms of business, which is where I think, although I may sort of regret getting a master's in finance and not computer science or something more technologically focused, I actually think, unbeknownst to me at the time, it's helped me. I can speak the language of the business. I understand what our reoccurring revenue streams may be. I understand the business nuances. I understand when they say, hey, can we delay these headcounts for XYZ reason? I understand that there's a business implication there that we're trying to satisfy. I think too many CISOs today are too stuck in the technological weeds still. Until you start thinking like you're a chief operating officer, because you are. Right. You're running your own business as a CISO within the company. But until you start thinking like the COO with a technological mindset, you're not going to get a seat at that table.
Love it. Love it. So let's kind of leapfrog from there into what's next. I think we kind of touched on it, but like if you had to look in your crystal ball a little bit, where should we head?
Yeah, I think it's there's so many primary points of focus for me right now, like my left and right lateral limits. What's my lane? How do I know what my lane is? Am I a customer-facing individual as a CISO? Am I a technological, am I trying to figure out what logs need to go to my SIM? Is that my responsibility? Am I trying to have conversations, again, with the CEO, asking him what he wants me to do? I think that, we are growing in independence. And this is why I think untethering ourselves from CTOs or CIOs or some of the other functions, by that untethering, you really get to start setting a strategic path for the CISO role itself. While you're tethered, you're going to be told what to do. Right. But again, you can't untether. They're not going to let you untether. Unless you have a business mindset that can operate that way. Does that answer?
It does, yeah. No, and I think that's dead on, because I was going to ask you a next question, but that last sentence is what you nailed it down with, which is until you prove that you have that business acumen. And I think we've had guests on the show that have shown that they do, because there are CISOs that have more than just cybersecurity. Right. And so when that trust now gets put upon you, in that wider scope, that's showing that, right? That's one way to demonstrate it. But I agree. I think the ability to come and prove that you don't continue to sit in the black box of cybersecurity. You redefine it. You say it's out there inside the business.
Yeah, I want to hit on the trust piece, because trust is not it's not just handed to you right away, right? You don't just have it, and you have to prove it. And I think there was a pivotal moment for me, which I feel like really showcases it, where when I got to the company and we do, you come in, you do your assessment, you do your gap assessment, and you present to the executives, hey, this is what we got. I think what everybody had expected me to do at that point was say, I need X millions of dollars to fix all of these problems, and I need it like tomorrow. And I know, and again, we should all be thinking pragmatically, I know from a practical and reasonable perspective, that's ridiculous to say. I'm going to show up and I'm going to lose trust immediately by almost, it's like, you don't know what you're talking about, Ben. Like, why are you asking for $10 million?
Almost the opposite of what your intent is, right? I'm coming in here to try to make a difference, but in the end, people don't trust you because now you're asking for ridiculous things.
So I came in, I asked for a reasonable, I said, this is what I think we can get done this year with the team we have today, and this is the money I need. There's no fluff there. And I executed on that year with the team I had, and by executing really well within that budget, after a year went by, they trusted me from a business perspective, So
because you're a good steward. You've proven yourself a good steward.
You're a good steward of the company's funds, a good steward of the company's objectives. Absolutely.
Love it.
Absolutely.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Pre-taping, we have talked about process. This is one of my favorite areas, right? So, and you had some very clear thoughts around process. So kind of start with your foundational aspects of process, and then we'll hit it from there, because
I have a self-deprecating comment on this, because I was an officer recruiter in the Marine Corps, and I used to love to just get by. I'm going to try to be a charming recruiter, and I will get people into the Marine Corps. And it works, right? To a certain extent, it works. You can pull that off for a while, but it's not repeatable. And so and then Colonel Bowers, who's now General Bowers in the Marine Corps, he came up to me, he came to visit me. I was based out of Orlando, and he said, Captain Dulieu, everything in life can be turned into a process, and should be turned into a process. Because once you turn something into a process, you can identify efficiencies and inefficiencies. And without the process, you can't. You can then make it repeatable. You can then fine-tune it. You grow a true procedures off of it. And it wasn't until he kind of put it that way that I was like, damn, that is so true for everything in life. From waking up in the morning and doing your workout to managing your family's finances, to managing your family, all this stuff. It sounds a little bit robotic, but it's not. So
when we talk about process specifically in the cybersecurity realm, I think, to me, quality, the driving, because the continuous improvement process is what I always, a process of a process, but the continuous improvement, I always preach that with my teams, but then being able to rate it, to say, we know whether we did well or not. How can we learn? We can always learn. So, again, in the pre-thing, we talked about the Marine Corps aspect of things. Everything's a process, having the ability to break it down, make it teachable, make it repeatable, and then judge how well we do, and then improve upon it. Talk to me about your experiences around that.
Yeah. So I belong to a couple of CISO groups in Boston. I have a lot of buddies that are CISOs, and we have a lot of fun poking at each other and questioning each other on this stuff. And I remember having a similar discussion with them and talking about the importance of process and frameworks, and what they all the consensus was like, frameworks are just, it's just that high level. It doesn't work for everybody. It's not one size fits all, et cetera, et cetera. But what I've come to find is it's almost as like in cybersecurity, we think it's so different. We think it's so complex that you can't have a process, Dave. You can't have a framework that's going to be good enough because
I'm a special flower.
I'm special. My environment is so much more complex than yours.
Right.
Okay. I would challenge that immediately and say, if human beings in a war zone can be turned into a process in the way that we approach combat, the way we approach medevacs, the way we approach all these situations, all the different circumstances and nuance that go into that, you're kidding yourself if you think technology can't be turned into a process.
Absolutely.
And so as soon as you do that, the refinement that occurs is almost organic. Right. Because you have your defined process, your team is executing it. Okay, I have my SOC team, they're meeting every day, they're monitoring these alerts. You know what? This alert doesn't make sense anymore. It's not as if you have to meet and say, okay, let's do the process refinement meeting.
Right.
It's like, no, it's a living, breathing thing.
You can watch the deviation in real time.
Exactly, 100%. You can see, that's weird. Why are we talking about this in this meeting? That doesn't make sense. Okay, let's bring us back over here.
Right.
And Dave, I think sometimes when we start talking about processes, because it is kind of a boring term in and of itself, it's like, oh my gosh, please.
Here we go again.
Here we go again.
Is the
process.
Definition of process, by the way.
But sometimes I think people, because of the formality of the word itself, think it is some arduous formal process.
Right.
But the reality is, this is just being a good leader, a good manager. And I'm not talking this even just at a CISO level. All of my managers, it's just them seeing what they're happening in their teams every day and saying, stop doing this, let's start doing this. Let's stop doing that, let's start doing this, and vice versa.
Perfect segue into leadership.
Nice.
So I want to hear Ben Dulieu's philosophy on leadership.
Yeah. This is a topic that we could spend hours talking about.
Yes, we could do a Rogan episode on this for sure, 3 hours plus.
Yeah, I'm quite passionate about it.
As am I.
And this is both at the human level of connecting with all my people, but let me say it at the principal level first and foremost. Not a single executive, CISO, COO, CEO can be successful without having some ability to connect and build quality teams. And that's done through leadership and management, right? They're not two exclusive terms. And I have always found, and there's like a Henry Ford comment where like Henry Ford would tell everybody, I'm not the smartest guy, but I can pick this phone up and hit the button to call the smartest guy.
Right.
That's my approach, foundationally. Look, I can't tell you how to configure every SIM tool that's out there. I can't tell you how to configure the F5 Barracudas, whatever WAFs you're using. That's not my job. Right. But I have damn good employees and people on my team that are the professionals in that area, that can configure that firewall and know the appropriate way. They do know what the logging should be. They do know what the IAM standards are. They do know GRC. They do know privacy. And that, to me, by bringing them in and surrounding myself with them, that's step number one. And then step number two, just like we talked about, trust isn't just given to the CISO from the executive.
Absolutely.
Well, guess what? Your people aren't just going to necessarily trust you. So I know I spend so much of my time building a relationship with them. Really, not at a business level, like really being able to understand how they work, understand how my people, their intentions, their motives, what do they want in life, and all that, you can rally all that to a common objective. And if you can unite and rally a team of experts around a strategy, which is my job, I'm the strategic center, right? You can unleash a group of people to accomplish any task that's put in front of them.
So how would a modern CISO or a CISO that's coming, so I have this theory called 1.0 to 2.0, right? 1.0 is the black box. Hey, you're a CISO, you grew up through the tech stack. Tell me we're okay, right? We're okay?
Yeah.
Don't talk to me anymore. I just want to know we're okay. That's 1.0. So if I'm transitioning out of 1.0 into 2.0, like we're talking about here, as a leader, as a cybersecurity leader, how do I make sure I have the ability to call BS on these technical experts? How do I have, I mean, I would see it's probably similar to what a COO or CEO or CFO goes through, right? They don't know all the stuff. Like, how do we do that?
I love it. That's a fantastic question. There's a couple things I want to hit while I try to answer this. First and foremost, I don't want to misconstrue what I'm saying as you don't need to know your stuff. There's a principle in the Marine Corps: be technically and tactically proficient.
Absolutely.
And so even as a CISO, I'm not abdicating myself of the responsibility of knowing industry best practices, appropriate configurations, being able to ask the hard questions. So you still need to be able to do that. Now, I think it's more important before that trust is gained and before you know your people, right? When you're sort of learning them, growing with them, maybe those questions would be more appropriate. But after a while, then you're able to do the fire and forget thing where, hey, I know I've got a great resource here. I know he's doing his job or she's doing their job, and they can execute. So 1.0 to 2.0, it doesn't abdicate yourself of that technical wherewithal and understanding and training. Train yourself. Go to the conferences. Meet new vendors. Meet new technology. But with that said, and I give this analogy of, I think a lot of my counterparts and colleagues that grew up on the more technical side struggle with sort of pulling out of that a little bit. And I've struggled with this throughout my career. And even when I was a brand new lieutenant, and this is almost an embarrassing story to tell. So I was a brand new lieutenant. Hey, the Marine Corps concept is we lead from the front. Right. You get out there, you eat last. You're the last one to stop running, but when your Marines are running, you're in front of them running. You show them what it's about. Right. Okay? First one off the helicopter, all that. And I'll never forget, we were on a 2-week in the field exercise. We were planning to go to Afghanistan, and I'm a command and control officer. I'm out there with my Marines, and the Marines are setting up tents. And so I said, okay, hey, my Marines are getting their hands dirty. I need to get my hands dirty. So I walk out there, sharpen my uniform. I'm like, all right, Marines, let's put these tents up. And I'm lifting the bars and laughing with the corporals, and we're having a good time until my gunnery sergeant walks over. Gunnery Sergeant James Aware. I love this guy. He walks over to me and he taps me on the shoulder. He's like, hey, sir, I need to talk to you for a minute. I'm like holding a tent. I'm like, Gunny, I'm holding a tent. What do you? No, sir, I need to talk to you right now. It's like, all right, Gunny. I walk away. Hey, Gunny, what's going on? He goes, sir, cut the shit. Stop it. You're an officer. You shouldn't be putting that tent up right now. And so the message was, hey, you're the leader. The Marines, that's their technical job to be configuring those SIM alerts. That's their job to be eyes on glass. Sir, pull yourself up a level. And as a CISO, I've carried that with me my whole life. You still need to be relatable. You still need to sometimes sit shoulder to shoulder with your people to show them that you care and you're involved. But at the end of the day, as a CISO, that's not your job anymore. That's not your job. That's how you professionalize the role of the CISO as well.
Absolutely. Wow. What a bookend on that, dude. Like wow. I appreciate that. Yeah. So we're kind of drawn to the near of our time. So we get into 10 questions now, right? So by the way, all that content just amazing. Like I couldn't have asked for a better way for it. We didn't plan that out, by the way. I think hopefully everybody understands that.
I can't believe we're at the end of our time already.
Right? It goes fast. It really goes fast. Well, actually, we'll probably be a little bit over time, but that's okay. Sarah loves us. So interview wrap up, we're going to do the 10 questions. So these are kind of quick hit. You can give some color to them, but typically not a 2-minute answer. What's your favorite word?
My favorite word? Grit.
What's your least favorite word?
Failure.
What area of your work do you find most interesting? I think I know this, but give me a succinct answer.
The people.
The people. What area of your work do you find the most challenging?
Budgeting. No.
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, man. What sound or noise do I love? My kids laughing.
Wow. What sound or noise do you hate?
The sound of the commuter rail train as it drives by me as I'm waiting to go into Boston.
Very specific. I love it. What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Absolutely. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh man, I love that question because if you ever played The Sims in your life, I remember when I played The Sims as a kid, like I would go into one profession and be like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go to Sims. And you have to switch careers, and I love that you could do that. And it doesn't feel as easy in your adult life. Honestly, I genuinely love leadership, and I would love to be some sort of spokesman and be able to help people grow and mentor their own life.
I can see that happening, actually. So,
but also on the veteran side.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
What profession would you not like to do? And this is not an indictment on any profession. This is your personal preference.
Yeah. I would not like to be a surgeon because I've always been able to deal with catastrophic stuff, but the idea of like surgically, that's just weird.
I don't desire. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Thank you for all the surgeons.
Thank you for all the surgeons. Believe me, after 7 orthopedic surgeries, I thank all the surgeons
Exactly.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, final question: if heaven exists, what would you like to hear your God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You did all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Dulieu.
Thank
you, sir.
Thank you
Truly appreciate the time. So today we talked about a lot of stuff, obviously leadership, where the CISO role needs to go. I think we sprinkled in there a little bit about how we decided to process. How we process. How do you do process? How do you improve it? That's a huge passion for me. The insights there were huge. I'm already thinking about the clips that we're going to pull from this and be able to post to help people, not just listen to the podcast, but out there for everybody else. So truly appreciate that. But in the end, colleagues and friends, I renew the call. It's time to professionalize the role of the CISO. In the meantime, I wish you health, happiness, and success on your journey in becoming the professional CISO. Let's do this.
We're professionalizing the CISO role, so please subscribe to the Professional CISO Podcast.